You know that feeling when you just don't have it in you to show up today? Maybe you're feeling tired, unmotivated, overwhelmed, or just not in the mood. I get it. I'm literally feeling that way right now. But here's the thing, showing up anyway is what actually makes a difference. So today I'm going to be talking about how you can do it even when you don't feel like it. Welcome back to this new episode of Voice Notes from Samio. I'm going to be real with you. This week, my motivation has been lacking. First of all, I pulled a muscle in my neck, which granted held me back physically and was somewhat outside of my control. But then, just as I was starting to feel better and recover, my period came. So that's been fun. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm someone who is all for rest when rest is needed. And I have taken time out this week, especially when I literally could not move my neck. But I also realized that when we do try and get back into the swing of things, sometimes we're just not in the mood. Overcoming those mental barriers can be quite a challenge, even if we know the things we need to do will be good for us in the long run. So I think the most important thing to do when we are struggling to keep showing up for ourselves is to take things back to the beginning and really remember our why. Why is the reason you are doing this thing in the first place? When you don't feel like showing up, your why is what pulls you through. You're not doing this thing for today. You're doing this thing to prove to yourself that you can be consistent. You need to think bigger than the moment. Why does this matter to you? What are you trying to build? And really reflect on this. I'm someone who's big on journaling. I feel like I mention it all the time. And you don't even have to go into like full-blown journaling. I feel like that word sometimes can feel overwhelming, especially if you're not into writing things down very much. But even just grab yourself a piece of paper and make a few notes. This is going to reactivate your brain to focus on the things you actually want. And just simply asking yourself why you want to do this thing and letting yourself flow with a stream of consciousness can be a really good way to reconnect that. Or even, like I said, just a few bullet points of why you want to do the thing. It doesn't even have to take 5 minutes. It can just be really quick and simple. But when you look at that, it will be a really good way to refresh your mind and give yourself that spark of motivation to keep going, because ultimately this is something that you really want. It really matters to you. And in showing up for yourself, you're going to prove to yourself that you can trust yourself and that you can keep going. And I think this leads perfectly on to my second point, which is to think about the consequences of not showing up. You might be thinking skipping this day won't have a big impact, or not doing this thing this week won't make a big difference. But actually, you need to think about, what is this telling your brain? If you don't do it today, or you don't do it this week, or whatever the task is that you need to do to work towards the thing that you're doing, what message is that sending yourself, and how is that ruining your self-trust with yourself ultimately? And I think it's really important to ask yourself, if I don't do this today, how will I feel tomorrow? And what ripple effect will this have? Because often it can be like dominoes. I've been there on more than one occasion. It might seem harmless skipping one day, but every time you back out, you reinforce that habit of quitting. And for this one in particular, this really reminds me of my own journey with YouTube in particular, where so many times in the past, I would say to myself, I'm going to do this once a week. And then for whatever reason, a week's come along where I've just felt like I can't keep up. And so I've decided, you know what, I'll leave it for this week. I'll carry on again next week. But then next week comes around and I'm kind of out of the flow of things, and maybe life's busy again. And I say, you know what son of a week? And before you know it, a month's gone by, 2 months have gone by, 3 months have gone by, and I'm completely out of the flow. Now, this might not seem that important, but for myself, by repeatedly saying I was going to do something and then not doing it, I was reinforcing the idea of quitting. And I was kind of breaking that trust with myself, so that then every time I did try to again show up, there was something in the back of my head that was like, yeah, but are you really going to stay consistent? Because you've said this before. And if you are watching this on YouTube and you've been here for a while, you've probably even seen this journey and this up and down with momentum. And so I think being really aware of the consequences can be very, very helpful, especially when you know yourself. Like with me, for example, I am showing up with this podcast regardless. Like I said, I've had a little bit of a week, but I know for me it's very important to keep consistent, because otherwise I will easily drop the ball and fall off, because it's more important to me to keep building that self-trust and showing up for myself in the way that I want to. And an easy way to do this is to make it easy. I think often, and I talk about this a lot, we can set the bar for how we think we need to show up we can set it so high that it's really hard for us to maintain. And life really does ebb and flow. External factors outside of our control, things going on in life, other areas of our life we need to show up for. It means that we need to adjust our efforts accordingly. I feel like exercise is a great example with this. I know I can be very all or nothing. I went through a period last year where I was on it, on the ball in January, and then I went away for a week. I think it was in February. I came back and I didn't go to the gym for at least 5 months, which is just crazy because I'd gone from being on it, really consistent, to doing nothing at all. And in that time, what would have really, really helped me, I think, in hindsight, would have just been to have a little bit of a pep talk to myself and said, you know what, if you can't keep showing up at that level that you were before, at least just do something at a smaller level. Because when I say I dropped off, I wasn't running, I wasn't walking, I wasn't doing yoga. I went from 100 to 0 real quick. And there was no real reason for it. And so I think allowing ourselves to adjust the levels of effort in which we show up can be a great way to keep going. I remember over the pandemic, I started a challenge for myself, and this was so effective, actually. I probably should have remembered this last year when I completely fell off. But the challenge was to move my body for just 10 minutes every day. And this could be in any capacity. Some days I would dance. Some days I would do an at-home workout. Some days I would do yoga. This was during the period of peak lockdown. So whether I could go for a walk or not was a bit hit or miss. But basically, I could do anything in the capacity of moving my body. I could, essentially do roly-polies if I really wanted to. And so I was very open to what that movement actually looked like. And in this, I was able to stay very consistent. And it was great because at the time, other people then started to join in and were sharing their workouts. And it really helped us keep that consistency, especially at a time when we weren't able to just go out and do the things we wanted to do. And so I think using that same sort of mentality now can be so helpful, because when we set ourselves goals like, going to the gym and doing a 45-minute workout 3 times a week, that is great. And, do that if you can fit that into your lifestyle. But we also need to allow ourselves to adapt the way we show up when we don't maybe feel like it for whatever reason. So then it's not all or nothing. Hormones can play a big part in this, your time of the month, your energy levels. So it's normal that you're not going to always have the exact same level of power and energy and consistency. And this goes for all areas of your life, whether you're showing up in starting a new business, whether you're trying to write a book, whether you're just working on your personal development. Just allowing yourself that leeway and giving yourself an easy mode when you need to, and realizing it is okay, really stops us from being in that all or nothing mentality, which I know all too well because I can be an all or nothing girly, but not this year. We are staying consistent. So remember, if you can't do the full version of something, do the easy version, because some effort is better than none. And if all else fails, you can bait yourself with reward. This one works pretty well for me because I'm someone who can easily procrastinate. I want the reward now. I want the fun now. I want the excitement now. And so when I have to do a task, whether it's to sit down and record a podcast episode, even though I enjoy it, I just start looking at the quote unquote job or the hard part. And I just want the end. I want the finished result. I want to sit back and enjoy the fact that I have already done it. And so sometimes I have to dangle myself a little carrot to say, okay, you sit down and do this for me now. And in an hour, you can have something. Today's something is a cinnamon bun. Oh, and when I finish this, will I be sitting down and eating that with a nice hot cup of coffee? Yes, I will. But can I have it before I've recorded this episode? No, I cannot. And a little bit of bait goes a long way. It can be different for you in different ways and on different days. And you know what? Sometimes actually just the reward of doing the thing is enough, and reminding yourself of that. I think that kind of ties back into point number 1, which is remembering your why. But thinking of how good you'll feel when you've done the thing. For me, exercise is a big one with this. I don't even need a reward at the end of it, because the dopamine I get is so high that that's enough to get me to go and do the exercise. I know this is different for everyone. Some people are like, I couldn't think of anything worse. If that's you, fair. But for me, that's an area where just the reward of the feeling of the thing at the end is enough. But yeah, try it. Bait yourself with a little a little bit of something, especially if you are someone who procrastinates. Maybe you're thinking about plans for the weekend and thinking, oh, I want to book a nice restaurant. You can do that after you've done the task at hand. And so treat that thing as a reward so that it doesn't get in the way as a distraction. And this could be anything. It could be allowing yourself half an hour to go sit and read your book after you've done the thing that you want to do, or allowing yourself a nice bath after you've done the thing. And I think it's also really about clapping for yourself when no one else is, or when no one else is yet, depending on what you're working towards. Obviously, this is especially important if you're doing something that's really personal that maybe no one outside of yourself knows. Say, for example, if you're working on your mindset, people outside of you, they might start to see a change, but they might not actually know how hard you've been working behind the scenes. And so giving yourself a pat on the back and acknowledging your personal accomplishments can really help you to keep showing up for yourself, because you're realizing how far you've come and how much taking that regular action has actually made a change in your life. So I think even reflecting can be really important to help move you forward as well, and to keep you going when you're maybe not feeling like it, but you know that in the long run, it is the best thing for you. And my final point is to just do the thing, because motivation comes after action. It's such a myth that motivation comes first and that we get the motivation and we do the things. And sometimes we can be really inspired to take the action and great, we go for it. But if we just only wait for that feeling, then we're going to be pretty inconsistent to how we show up. Actually, it's in the doing that we feel motivated and inspired to keep going. For me, this is a big one with the gym. To be honest, with working out in general now, I'm pretty much on autopilot. I've been doing it so long for so consistently. I don't really have to motivate myself to go. I just go because I enjoy it. And like I say, I get that dopamine reward from it. And it's just so ingrained in my routine. But even on those days where I'm feeling a little less inspired to go, I know that once I get into the flow of my workout, I'll start to get that momentum, and then the motivation to keep going will be there. And this ties back to the challenge that I did many years ago, which was the 10 minutes of working out every day. Most of those days, I actually did longer than 10 minutes. But by saying to myself, you only need to do 10 minutes, it was the trick that I needed to get me started, because actually 10 minutes goes so fast. If you only want to do 10 minutes in that moment, fine. Like some days you are going to just think, I'm done. I've done my 10 minutes. And that's allowing yourself to show up easily. But most of the time, you start the thing, you build the momentum, you get into the flow and you're like, well, I'm here now. It's like if I travel to the gym, I'm like, I'm here now. I'm going to carry on and I'll do my full hour-long workout or whatever it may be. And this applies to so many areas of life. Right now, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but I feel like a ventriloquist puppet who's had their hand. Oh no, this sounds really bad. Basically, I feel like a puppet that's come to life. Okay, let's scrap the ventriloquist analogy. I feel like a wind-up doll. Someone's put a coin in me and I've just come to life. You might have been able to tell I was a little lower energy at the start, but as I got into it, I started to get that momentum and I started to feel motivated to keep going. And now I'm like, what was the problem? We all know that feeling, right? When you dread something, but once you get started, you think that actually wasn't so bad. I have this for so many things, even things that I enjoy sometimes. I get overwhelmed thinking about the task, so much so that I start to dread it. And so I put it off. But when I actually go and take the action and I do the thing, and I'm like, why was I so afraid of this? Or why did I put this off so much? Because momentum builds more momentum. And like I say, even just giving yourself that 10-minute rule, if you are trying to write every day, just say to yourself, just 10 minutes. And you'll probably find you want to go for longer, or movement, just 10 minutes, or showing up and creating content, just 10 minutes, whatever it may be for you in whatever area of your life you're trying to show up for yourself. You've just got to show up and do the thing. And in it, you will build momentum. You will find that motivation kicks in, and you'll also be developing that self-trust, and it will help you next time when you want to show up, because you'll be like, I did this before, it wasn't so bad, and I can keep doing it again. So that's it. That's all I've got for you today. Just a short one. But you know what? I showed up, I did the thing, and I'm feeling good for it. And I have thoroughly enjoyed chatting your ear off. as always. So now it's your turn to go and do your thing and show up for yourself. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please do share it on your Instagram stories, and you can tag me on my personal Instagram at Samio Ronaldo. And we have a new voice notes from Samio Instagram, so you can find us there. I will be posting on it very soon. I haven't started yet, but hopefully by the time you're listening, there'll be something on there. Maybe it will be your story. That could be my first post in the stories. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will speak to you next time.